Previously on X-Men.
Stay tuned and let's check out this Marvel Legends X-Men VHS boxed Mr. Sinister. Pow and welcome back to the channel, Dan Who Reviews. As always, my name is Dan W. Make sure you are following me on Instagram at It's Dan Who. And remember, you can now hit that join button and become a channel member as well. Either show some love or join the members club. Much appreciated. Today we are taking a look at the Marvel Legends X-Men VHS boxed Mr. Sinister. So I'm surprised he is the first one to arrive. I have them all on pre-order. I expected to see Wolverine or even Jubilee first, but no, Mr. Sinister is our first in-hand look at these new X-Men VHS boxes. And I must admit, it looks really nice. This is Hasbro's plastic-free packaging, so it gives them an opportunity to give us a really nice art on the front of the box. And because it's windowless as well, we can just buy one of these and display both the box and the figure and no one will know. So I do like that aspect of it, but it looks really nice. But what surprised me the most when I got this figure today is the size. I expected it to be the same size as the Army Builders, but if I bring in one of those scrolls that we recently got from Hasbro Pulse, you can see it's much bigger than an Army Builder box. Of course, Mr. Sinister is a bigger figure, but the box surprised me with the scale. And if I bring in an actual Marvel Legends box as well, I've got the Walgreens exclusive Baron Zemo here. You can see the box is bigger than the box, of course, not including the back, but still, it gives you a good look at the size of these things. So yeah, it's bigger than you're expecting it to be, but it's really nice. The art is definitely going to pop, as I said, if you want to display these maybe behind the figures when you get them, but I am very curious. So, of course, we're going to open this up. I do want to do a comparison with the actual comic version of Mr. Sinister as well, because I know a lot of people are thinking, is this another opportunity to get maybe a Mr. Sinister in a comic display? Is that cel shading going to ruin that? We shall see. I will do a comparison, answer all those questions, hopefully. But first, one more time, let's look at this box. So there we have it on the front. Mr. Sinister looks great. Spin it around to the side, and then we get that VHS style. So as we start adding more of these to the collection, you can start building your own VHS library on the shelf. Now, I'm a kid in the 90s, so of course I had VHSs, but I don't have one for a comparison, unfortunately. Not anymore. They're in my mum's attic, maybe. On the back of the box, we're getting that digital render of Mr. Sinister, as well as a write-up that reads, "The twisted geneticist Mr. Sinister seeks to create the perfect mutant lifeform. His chosen test subjects, Jean Grey and Cyclops." And of course, it's inevitable. We're going to get Jean Grey and Cyclops in this line. We have to. They are main players of that animated show. So I'm liking what I see so far. Let's get him out of the box. I rarely do this on camera, but considering it's the first time, let's genuinely open it for the first time here and see what we get in the box. So there we go. Open that up, and he seems to be in some sort of card. Okay, pull him out. Okay, here we have our plastic-free packaging. So there is Mr. Sinister. Open that. Take him out of his tomb. There he is, revealed. Reveal yourself. So the box is holding his cape. Well, the card is holding his cape. And then the figure is in a little bag. So there we have it, Mr. Sinister. Let me move all this out of the way and take a closer look. Here we have Mr. Sinister out of the packaging with all of his accessories. He has no accessories. What you see is what you get, because Hasbro have us on nostalgia alone, because this VHS box is, of course, meant to represent that 90s animated X-Men show that we all love so much. And it's the perfect time as well, because Disney Plus is bringing that show back next year with the same continuity. So get these figures now before you get FOMO next year. And you have to admit, they look pretty good when you can display them like this. You only need to buy one and you can display both the box and the figure. Real estate is going to be a problem this way, but again, a more smarter, minimalistic display is going to look pretty good if you can get these lined up on a shelf displayed like this. But it is, of course, meant to represent a more accurate animated version of Mr. Sinister. So if I bring in a side by side, we can see Hasbro have done a pretty good job. I think the colours they've picked is spot on. The blue, the red, and even the places they've chose to put the cel shade in is pretty good. It doesn't look as jarring as I expected it to, and as a representation of that animated show, you can't say they haven't done a good job. It really does look like the Mr. Sinister we've seen on that cartoon. So I'm not mad about it, but how does it look compared to the comic version? So here's the comparison most are curious about. We have the VHS versus the comic Mr. Sinister. And as you can see, from head to toe, they are basically the exact same figure, apart from one thing. Can you tell? The VHS has a new neck. So on the comic version, you can see the sculpted lines of the actual body on the neck, and it also is in that metallic blue, where on the VHS version the neck is now white skin tone to match Mr. Sinister. So it actually is more accurate to the animated show than the comic one. So there you go, there's your only difference. Other than that, it is that same sculptural figure from head to toe. Same head, same cape. It's the same figure apart from that neck. And of course, the deco, the paint, the colours is where the difference lies. So the comic Mr. Sinister is a little bit darker in tone. It has that metallic blue uniform, where the VHS version has a brighter blue, a more vibrant blue, a much brighter red. And of course, the cell shading is that dark grey. It's not quite black, it's just dark grey. And it's not as jarring as I expected, which I'm happy to report. Also, the cape, the inside of the cape is red on the comic version, the inside of the cape is black on the VHS version. But again, the main difference is going to be the colour and that cell shading. But the cell shading does quite accurately represent the animated show, so you can't be mad about that. And it does give me hope for the rest of this line as well. Let's take a closer look, and as you can see, there is your difference. The skin tone neck. There are no sculpted lines like there is on the armoured body. It is a skin tone neck, which does make it much more accurate to the animated show. There is even a different paint job on the face. As you can see, the sort of black sort of points up, which works really well. It would have been nice to get an alternative head for Mr. Sinister, considering it's the same figure. But if we're only going to get one head, at least we've got a sinister grin. So you can see what they've did there. There's even cell shading on the hair. You can see the blue there on the quiff, and then the black on the top of the head. Behind the hood, you can see the red and the dark grey. And the whole cell shading is more of a dark grey than a black. And it's not as jarring as I expected, and it's not just splodged on there. It makes sense where it is. It sort of sits where the shadows would sit on the animated show. So you can see we've got this strip going down the arm, but not on the inside of the figure. A strip going down the leg, as you can see, all the way down to the boots. There's grey there, and again, it's a light grey up there on the boots, and it works out pretty well. Like even on the chest here, there's more grey on here compared to the grey here. It's more down there, and under the figure and on the back, as you can see, it's all blue. No cell shading on there at all. All blue. The underside here is blue, black, and then blue on both sides here. And there's a difference there as well with the cape. Dark blue and blue, underside cape red, underside cape black. There's our differences in necks, metallic neck, armoured neck, and there's our figure. So all in all, this is a pretty good, accurate representation of the animated version of Mr. Sinister we've seen. We've got a claw hand, a fisted hand. Again, complaining that there's no interchangeable parts. That would have been nice. But all in all, it does what we wanted it to. It's an animated representation of Mr. Sinister in Marvel Legends form. So these two won't be anywhere near each other on the shelf. I will create my own sort of animated X-Men shelf and display. But there we have it. There is your closer look at Mr. Sinister. All the sculpted lines. Still an old body, so we've still got the pins, unfortunately. But we know what we're getting, and it's decent. Let's move on to some comparisons. I'm going to skip over articulation because it is the same Mr. Sinister figure we got a few years ago. If you want to see Mr. Sinister's articulation, go and check out my original review of this guy. It is still on the channel. But for one last time, VHS versus comic. Basically the same figure, apart from the neck joint. It's all about the deco preference. Do you prefer the comic look with the metallic shine or the animated look with the cell shading? I do think, honestly, both will fit into a comic display if you're not as OCD as I am. It's a great figure overall and a great representation of any version of Mr. Sinister. Hopefully in a few weeks' time, I'll be able to do this comparison once again, but with the actual VHS versions of both Jubilee and Wolverine, because they are on their way. But until then, here we have both the Jim Lee comic versions of Wolverine and Jubilee, which still look great with this Mr. Sinister. And to be honest, this cell shading on Mr. Sinister has made me less apprehensive of getting Wolverine and Jubilee. I'm sort of looking at this now thinking, yeah, it's going to work. If you know anything about Mr. Sinister, then you will know he is obsessed with this bloodline, and it even says that on the back of the box. So here we have Scott and Jean, Cyclops and Jean Grey in their Jim Lee uniforms, and I'm sure it is inevitable before these guys get announced in this VHS line, because they are main players in that animated show. I am going to be very curious to see what they look like, what designs they go for, but until then, Mr. Sinister, compared to these two, looks good. Continuing with that very bloodline, here we have Cable and Hope Summers, and now we are definitely due a new Marvel Legends Hope Summers. This one was great for the time, but we are definitely due an upgrade. Now, you may not be able to see Magneto fading away in the background, but here we have a more of a modern day comparison with the House of X version of Magneto and Charles Xavier, as Mr. Sinister and these two were all in the Quiet Council together. Here we have Sinister with two members of the Hallians with Psylocke and Wildchild. Here we have both the 20th anniversary Captain America and Iron Man, because these are undoubtedly classic comic colours that really do pop on a display. And I thought if Mr. Sinister fits in with these guys, then he can definitely be pushed into a comic display, and they sort of do. And not to be outdone, here we have the 20th anniversary Hulk. And he obviously scales massively above Mr. Sinister, who is a big figure within himself. But again, looking good. And if you want to see my full review of this 20th anniversary Hulk, it's on the channel right now. Here we have Mr. Sinister with Frogman and Tigra. Last but definitely not least, here we have Captain Britain and Hal, Fire, Hank. So, final thoughts on this X-Men VHS Mr. Sinister. Remember, this is a Hasbro Pulse exclusive. I think it's eventually going to be shared with Disney, but my point is we never know how long these are going to last. We don't know how much stock they have, and I do think next year FOMO is going to be real when people are trying to backtrack to get these animated figures. So don't sleep, get them now, because this figure has actually made me more excited about the whole X-Men VHS line. When it first got announced, I was thinking, do I really need these representations of the characters I already have on the shelf just for a fancy box? But it's more about what they represent, and I love that X-Men animated show, and it does give me the feels. Again, I'm a sucker for nostalgia. What can I say? I'm a prime candidate for this type of stuff. So you may not agree with me, but yeah, I'm going to be all in on this line, I think. They're definitely going to have to be a separate display, though, even though I do think this Mr. Sinister will fit into a comic display if you're not as OCD as me. I will be making my own separate display for all of these VHS figures. They display great with the box if you have that type of real estate, but still, I'm looking forward to the rest of the figures that have been announced so far, and of course, what they are going to announce in the future. Hopefully, it doesn't take them 8 years to complete a team, and we can get a nice rounded out X-Men team before that show relaunches in 2023. But you know, I love that animated show just as much as I do as the Spider-Man, so I'm going to have to get them all. But you let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you in on this VHS line? Do you think this Mr. Sinister can fit into a comic display? All of that good stuff. But if you like Marvel Legends, then trust me, people, you are in the right place. Go and check out the videos tab. Find the playlist, and this bit's free. Please, please, please hit that subscribe button. Much, much appreciated. You can also hit that join button and become a channel member as well. Either show some love or join the members club. Much, much appreciated. And if you want to see more comparisons or more pictures, the best place to find me is on Instagram at It's Dan Who. And don't be shy, tweet me. I'm on Twitter at Dan Who Reviews. And trust me, this whole video, I have been dying to play the X-Men theme tune, but my super producer has told me I will get demonetized if I play that music. So instead, he has got an outro for me that he has promised is copyright free. So before I let that play, let me just say, my name is Dan W, and I will, of course, see you on the next one.
Dan Who. 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 Dan Who.